every night for like 40 years.
Yeah, I was going to go into neuroplasticity, I think, and the hopes of the placebo effect and how it's a documented thing where you can convince yourself of outcome and it actually happens within the body.
Yeah, but we're only beginning to learn about how the universe works. We got a lot of silly ideas that we've inherited from our ancestors, and some few good ones that worked. But I think we're going to see some big changes in all sorts of stuff. I think we're at a turning point in Earth's history. I think the next 10, 20 years, we're going to see an entirely new civilization emerge. And not a moment too soon.
Yeah, it's. I just made the kind of a note earlier. Well, it's a concept that I've played with, but it's like we're anatomically, cavemen still biologically.
We're monkeys.
300 years ago, we were living in the woods and hunting, and I mean, sure, we were somewhat civilized.
No, listen, we are language monkeys.
But we haven't adapted to having technology like this, and I feel like it could be a detriment to our health,
Well, we need to, the problem is it's sort of like everybody's still operating on MS-DOS instead of some modern operating system. The language we've got in our head is 200,000 years old. We've been run by the voice in our head for the last 200,000 years, and it worked okay. It worked well up until the last 100 years or so. It's clear now that it's dysfunctional, and we need to upgrade our thinking system. It's really quite simple. That's it. And that's the new species. We look just like the old species. We're interbreedable with them, but the language functioning is so significantly different as to constitute, I would say, a new species.
But what about our biological mind? Like Elon said himself, it's like our thumbs are the only way we can communicate with our computers, and we need to upgrade that by 10x so we can somewhat be on par with, because we move so slow. We're only
biology. Listen, we're one kind of intelligence. Silicon intelligence is here now and is going to change everything. Carbon intelligence is very good, but silicon intelligence is better. and so the question is, how are we going to interact with that? How is it going to affect us? How are we going to use it? How is it going to use us? What the hell's going to happen? But it's all going to happen in the next 10, 20 years.
And we evolve at the rate of what? 10,000, 20,000?
No. It's not about evolution. No, we can change overnight. You can be born again. That's what I say. The domain of language is not subject to biology.
When I say biology, I mean we can look at humans' eyesight now. There's a lot of ailments that people have from staring at screens, and we're just not meant to be staring.
No, there's nothing wrong with staring at screens as long as you have a reasonable screen. There haven't been any good screens until the last 10 years. If you don't have a screen resolution of 220 pixels per inch or better, then if you go blind, fuck you. Get a screen that isn't going to destroy your eyes. Those old screens do, and most of the screens you see in businesses are 125 pixels per inch. Everybody who's using those and reading is destroying their eyes. but you have a good screen like what's on your phone or an iPad or a Retina display, then it's better than reading on paper, actually. So you're right. I mean, you're right. Up until recently, screens have been
So yeah, I think they're very different.
But,
What would you be? So my follow-up question, I don't know if you're aware of this. You should be aware of this, but you may not, or it may not come up in your purview of memory. Are you aware that the Likud party of today was actually ran by members of what was called back then the CERN gang that was absorbed into the political and military fabric of Israel?
Yes, of course I'm familiar.
So would it be right for them, whether they exist today or they existed back then, to be a part of the military and political fabric of the nation, given their history?
Absolutely it would. Just like it's okay for Sinn Féin, which is absolutely from the IRA, is now part of politics in Ireland, but they observe electoral politics and some rules of law. And when they don't, like in Israel, when I was actually in marches against the state of Israel, right in Israel, participating in that, the people came out in droves because they were trying to do away with the Constitution. The constitutional norms, I should say.
No,
Israel.
that's not what was happening. First of all, you're talking about judicial reform, by the way. Like, I don't know how can you be okay. So, like, when the Supreme Court of Israel is being appointed by other people versus like something that you would venture to guess would be voted on. Like, how can you be against the judicial reform and the way that it was presented the last time it was brought up in Israel? I don't understand how can you be that's not how.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
for the rest of the people listening to him and I discuss this, there's a favorite joke that says, when you have 3 Jews, you have 4 opinions, right? So we're not going to necessarily agree with this. You know, I think your case, and I understand one of my best friends in Israel argues the case opposite of this like you do, says that all of those people who are judges are just cronies of others, you know, from the left who've been put in that position. So we really need to even it out and get some people from the right in there and so on. The fact of the matter is that what I see is Netanyahu is a criminal who would be in jail if he didn't
Allegedly.
Okay, I think it is allegedly, but I'm just going by my belief, and I believe that he's keeping himself in power so he doesn't have to face the courts. And so we don't have the same sort of perspective on this, and everybody listening to this should understand that the whole Israel situation is far more complex than people realize. And so, you know, it's possible for me to be a supporter of Israel and not a supporter of Israel's government presently.
Okay.
It's possible for me to be a Jew and not support Israel. It's possible for me to be a supporter of Israel and not be a Jew. We should not judge each other by.
But can you explain to me, like, in a very like quick, concise manner, like why, like, so I understand the whole situation about the judicial reform and like why, in my opinion, I don't know why Supreme Court justices should be appointing themselves. That makes absolutely no sense. But like, why does it make sense to you?
I would not characterize this as judges appointing themselves in Israel. I don't think.
Well, that's what happens. It's a committee that just.
But is it working in its current setup to protect the rights of minorities and those who think differently than the far right, and those who would love to see Israel remade as a theocratic state? Is it working? Is it keeping the checks and balances in place? And if you don't have something to replace it, what do you have in Israel? You don't have a way to check the right's power. And I think ultimately that's why the people went out and marched in droves. And these are the ones, again, I respect
hey, whatever, we're part of them now. Yeah, so to speak. But whenever they want it to be known that we're not part of them, then suddenly we're not part of them. So it's you're part of them when they feel like it, and not.
Their own supply. They were trying to supply the Americans in America that want the damn fentanyl, the cocaine, whatever area you want to look at. They are anymore. It's the Gulf of America. It's true.
No, it's still the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
So
No, it's not.
no one's changed that yet. There's not been an official change to that. No, there hasn't. I don't know.
He signed it in yesterday. He signed it.
Yesterday?
He signed it. Yes.
Okay, go
Yes, he signed it.
Okay. But what I'm trying to get at is if you're looking at like Asia, right? There's a historical correspondence here of what it means to be in Asia. So if you change it to what it means to be in the United States, I'm just asking you if it's true that you're in the United States.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know. I didn't approach men, so I don't know. I would say don't do it.
If I was her, I would have. You'll binge on those 2 books.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could decide. You know, I think your kids are old enough, but that's up to you.
They're almost 15. My daughter's almost
Yeah.
15. My son
Yeah.
is 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Definitely.
I'm surprised you haven't heard of it actually.
No, I haven't. Thank you.
There you go. Well, these are it's a sad subject, but I kind of thought you might be interested.
I remember reading Anne Frank. I read Anne Frank a couple of times actually.
Wow.
I had to read it for school, and then I read it a couple of times after just to read.
The whole thing is.
My dad made me read a lot too when I was younger, to be honest with you. Like, my dad made me read a lot. Like, I would have.
All, but when you look at the ice rink, targets, more often than not, these people look brown. You don't see them going to places like Northeast Philly. And like, say it again?
Only the illegal ones, and maybe.
No, not really. I didn't meet you either. But yeah, no, not really though, because like when you like, for instance, in Philadelphia, you can go to Northeast Philadelphia, and there's a whole bunch of illegal Ukrainians, Russians,
Oh, there's
Europeans.